All right, guys, welcome in to the second episode now of the Rally Time podcast. Here as part of the wider Jordy Culotta Show network, or Jordy Culotta Show sphere, you might say. I'm your host, Justin. Christian is again back here producing the show for us. Like we'll both be here every week throughout baseball season, and this show, we're going to cover the Omaha series from this past weekend. We're also going to get into the Southern game from last Tuesday, the only midweek game that LSU played last week because the Nichols game got canceled Wednesday due to weather. They're playing that game tonight as we are filming the show on a Monday afternoon, about 3 hours away from first pitch of that game. Before we get into, again, we're going to cover the Southern game. We're going to spend most of our time on the weekend series against Omaha because I feel like the weekend series is obviously more important, right? But I do want to cover I don't want to just ignore the midweek games. I want to kind of cover them, but that'll only take us about 5 minutes before we get into the meat of what happened over the weekend, because we obviously have a lot to talk about. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in last week. I heard a lot of positive feedback from people. It was really cool, really fun. I have a passion for LSU baseball, for college baseball in general, but especially LSU baseball, and to be able to share that with a wider audience is something I've always wanted to be able to do. And this is really something I'm really excited about as we get deeper and deeper into the season. But getting all of that out the way, again, we're going to start by covering the Southern game from last Tuesday before we get into the 3 weekend games against Omaha. So in the Southern game, LSU won 13-1 in seven innings. They ruled them 13-1. The pitchers for LSU, just going through this real quick, were Connor Ware, Zach Cowan, and Cade Woods. So Connor Ware pitched the first 3 innings. He did not allow a run. He did not allow a hit. And he walked 1 and he struck out 2. Zach Cowan pitched 3 innings, 4, 5, and 6. He allowed 1 run that was not earned, along with 2 hits, and he struck out 3. Cade Woods pitched the last inning, the 7th, allowing no hits and striking out 2. So a little bit on these 3 pitchers. Connor Ware is a transfer from Pearl River Community College. He's a 6'4" left-hander with a big curveball, a sneaky fastball at 92 to 93 miles per hour. He's an uncomfortable at bat. And what's interesting about him is Jay Johnson actually said that Connor Ware was his best pitcher in fall practice in terms of performance, which was kind of surprising for me to hear at first with all the arms that this team has with Anderson, Shores, and Ianson in particular. But Connor Ware apparently was Jay Johnson's best pitcher in fall ball, which was really good to see, to hear, because that kind of shows the depth of this pitching staff that we'll get into as the show goes along. So Connor Ware, he did not allow a run, an earned run all fall, which again points to the fact that Coach Johnson said about Ware being his best pitcher in the fall. Ware was injured last season, and LSU was fortunate to get him through the draft. So he's a guy who Jay Johnson is really high on. And you could kind of see that in the game against Southern, the first 3 innings. Zach Cowan, he was the ace. He transferred. He was the ace at Wofford last season, where he pitched 110 innings and struck out 124 with a 10-2 record. Cowan's got a fastball between 90 and 92, and Cowan, based on fall ball and preseason practice, what I saw, is kind of a contact guy, gets a lot of ground outs, a lot of pop outs. Not really a strikeout guy, but again, he had 3 strikeouts in this game last Tuesday against Southern, so that was kind of good to see from him. And then Cade Woods, who finished it off redshirt junior, transfer from Bama last season, and throws up to 94 miles an hour. Hitting-wise, we saw a nice 3-hit, 3 RBI game from both Derek Curiel and Ethan Fry. Fry hit a 3-run home run, actually, in the 4th inning, I believe. It was Ethan Fry's first home run as an LSU Tiger, which was shocking for me to believe. I could have guaranteed I thought I saw him hit a homer last year, but it was actually his first home run as a Tiger. Fry was batting in the DH spot for the game when he hit his first homer over the left field wall. Fry's got a lot of power. He's one of the most powerful guys on the team. I would say he's kind of neck and neck with Jared Jones in terms of power. I would give the edge to Jones, of course, because he hit 28 bombs last year. But Ethan Fry definitely has a lot of power. And he's a guy who could definitely be a key contributor this season. After last season, he was battling all season pretty much last season with a torn labrum. So that kind of like derailed his season a little bit. He played through it and tried his best, but he's back to full health this season, so I expect him to be a key contributor on this team. Again, kind of talking about the depth in that outfield with Curiel, Stanfield, Larson, Pearson, Brown, and add Ethan Fry to that position. And then Stephen Milam also in the Southern game had 2 hits, including a triple, which was good to see because Milam wasn't the best hitting-wise last week in the series against Purdue-Fort Wayne. But it was good to see Milam have that performance after kind of a lackluster series against Purdue-Fort Wayne. Stephen Milam's a guy who I and Jay Johnson has all the confidence in the world in because of what he did last season, what he showed us what he showed the fans in his freshman year. And I expect him to continue along that path. So then there's the Omaha series from this weekend. LSU played Omaha Friday and then played a doubleheader Saturday because it was really rainy last Sunday here, or yesterday, here in Baton Rouge. So that was really good to see them get that doubleheader in so that they could get all 3 games in this past weekend. So LSU won the game Friday 4-2, first game of the weekend. Cade Anderson was the starter again on Friday night guy. Anderson pitched 5.1 innings, gave up 2 earned runs on 3 hits and 2 walks. He also had 8 strikeouts, which was the same amount that he had as last week.
Were you able to make it to the game?
This game, again, I was kind of sick Friday,
Okay.
so I was sick Friday, so I watched it from home, and then I got to see the first game of the doubleheader Saturday.
Yeah.
So I got to go to the ballpark Saturday and see the game on Saturday, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Anderson was really impressive, and his first 5 innings were basically flawless. First 5 innings, he didn't allow a run in the first 5 innings, and nearly 70% of his pitches were strikes. Through the first 4 innings, he threw 49 pitches, and 34 of them were strikes. So he was really efficient, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say with Anderson, he was super efficient. It was super impressive to see. He could be one of the best pitchers in the country as the season goes along.
He'll definitely be one of the more consistent ones. Can you read off his stat line again?
5.1 innings, 2 earned runs,
Yeah.
3 hits, 2 walks, 8 Ks.
Yeah, that's probably going to be your average Cade Anderson line this year. I think that'll be pretty much expected every week from him. I mean, it's not Paul Skeens by any means, but it sure as hell is getting the job done on Friday night. And I think it'll be consistently like that, 8 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts, very few walks. He'll go probably at least 4.5 innings. Like, it'll probably be right around there. I think that'll be an expected stat line from Cade, honestly.
And he did a really good job in this game of utilizing his changeup. His fastball wasn't as fast as it was last week because the weather was kind of colder in Friday's game against Omaha. So it wasn't as fast. So he was able to use his changeup really early. He was really efficient, He was great in his first 5 innings, but he started to kind of struggle in the 6th inning. So 6th inning comes up, and he walks 2 batters in the 6th before an opposite field single by Omaha drove in their first run of the game. He was super efficient, dominating the first 5 innings of the game. But again, we kind of didn't see this last week. Again, last weekend in the series against Purdue Fort Wayne, they only had 2 walks compared to 45 strikeouts. Through the first 5 innings of this game, Anderson was dominant, but he walks 2 in the 6th, allows that opposite field single that drives in a run, and then Connor Binge, the transfer from Dallas Baptist, came on in relief with the bases loaded. When Binge came on, Omaha hit a sacrifice fly off of Binge and then grounded out to end the inning. So Binge gave up 1 more run. So it was Binge, once he came in, he only gave up a sac fly that gave up Omaha's 2nd run of the inning, and then Omaha grounded out to end the 6th inning. So it was 4-2 after 6 innings. Good job getting out of trouble for Binge. And then Maverick Rizzi came in and he pitched a scoreless 7th inning. Really impressive. Only allowed 1 hit and he struck out 1. And then Casey Evans was very impressive as well. He pitched the 8th and the 9th. That's the final 2 innings of Friday's game. And he allowed no runs, no hits, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. 5 strikeouts for 6 of Casey Evans' outs in the final 2 innings. Really impressive to see, again, a freshman who I expect really good things from. A lot of people expect a lot of really good things from Casey Evans, and I'm one of them. And I would say through the first 2 weeks, the bullpen guys who have impressed me the most by far are Maverick Rizzi and Casey Evans, for sure. It was really important after the 6th to kind of see. It was the first really time LSU pitcher struggled was the 6th inning when they gave up those 2 runs. And then Rizzi and Casey Evans do a really good job in the final 3 innings of really riding the ship and keeping the score at where it was, and where it ended 4-2 with an LSU victory. As far as the LSU hitting is concerned, Jake Brown, Derek Curio, and Luis Hernandez all had 2 hits in the game. Luis Hernandez had 2 doubles and 1 RBI, which was really good to see, because remember last week we talked about the catcher position and how the catching position was between Hernandez, Priester, and Aaron Beatty. None of the catchers were really that impressive at the plate last weekend, but Luis Hernandez had 3 doubles over the weekend and really put in an impressive outing at the plate. He had 23 homers last year when he was still at Indiana State, and he was projected the 10th best catcher in the country according to D1 Baseball in the preseason. So it was really good to see Hernandez have kind of his first breakout weekend at LSU, and it started Friday with 2 doubles and an RBI. Jake Brown also had an RBI and a double as well. So it wasn't a bad game at all from the bats, but you notice that the team left runners on base a lot. One example of this came in the 7th inning where Michael Braswell struck out with the bases loaded to end the 7th inning when the score was 4-2 and LSU still really had a chance to, make it. Braswell gets the hit right there, maybe make it 6-2 instead of 4-2, and give your pitchers a little more leeway and a little more room to work, right?
I also think that's because of the wariness of the beginning of the regular season. I think if that plate appearance comes in May, early June, late May, well, maybe even April, I think that's probably a base hit, so.
Yeah, it's harder to score when the weather's cold and when it's windy outside, and that's what the conditions were really like all weekend.
And
I think it'll also
take
that weather.
I think it'll also take a little bit for some of these guys to get going. Like I think the fan base might be quick to jump on a lot of people, but I think they need to understand that, these guys are college players, right? They're not going to come out smoking hot every single season. It's baseball. This is not football to where athleticism is the only factor in kind of how you play. This is like you have to see the ball hit ball, right? It's not necessarily, how much you train. It's also a mindset thing. So I think some of these guys might start out slow, but they'll definitely come along later in the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of on to that, LSU hitters actually struck out 8 times in this game when they only struck out 17 times in the previous 4 games. So it was really kind of a game where you kind of saw them start to struggle here and there, but they still put up enough runs to where the pitching and the bullpen and Cade Anderson were able to hold on for the win. So it was a really good start to the weekend. LSU hitters struck out 8 times in Friday's game when they only struck out 17 times in the previous 4 games. So they started to struggle a little bit, but they scored enough to where the pitching was able to be good enough to hold on to win the game 4-2 in Friday's game. Then Saturday comes along, and LSU played a doubleheader Saturday, and let's talk about Game 2, where LSU dropped their first game of the season, their first loss of the season, when they had opened up 5-0, and then they lost Game 1 of the doubleheader. Anthony Ianson, again, started his second game of the season in the opening game Saturday, and he was highly impressive. Ianson pitched 6 innings of work, 6 innings of scoreless baseball, giving up 3 hits, 2 walks, and he recorded 7 strikeouts. Ianson was, again, really impressive. All of the starters were impressive for the second weekend in a row, and it's something we'll talk about as the show goes along, with the fact that I really believe that the starting rotation can end up as one of the best in the country. The starting weekend rotation between Anderson, Ianson, and Shores, which we'll talk about Shores in the third game. But Ianson was really impressive. But the 7th inning is where it all went wrong for LSU pitching. Ianson comes, he doesn't come back in the 7th inning, and Grant Fontenot, number 52, came in the game in the 7th inning for Ianson, and he only faced 2 batters, and he hit both of them. So he hits both of the batters he faced, and then, at this time, it's a 0-0 game, which we'll kind of talk about the hitting in a little while. I kind of want to focus on the pitching right now, but it's a 0-0 game. Fontenot hits the first 2 batters he faces in the 7th, gets taken out of the game, and Connor Benj comes in second day in a row trying to pull out something again for the Tigers and kind of minimize the damage and keep the game scoreless. So Connor Benj comes in with runners on second and first, no out, runners on second and first, and he gives up a run off of a single and another run off of a wild pitch, and then it happens. The thing we hadn't seen yet. LSU pitching allows their first home run of the season as Omaha's Jackson Trout, credit to him, hit a 3-run homer off of Benj to make the score 5-0. Benj finished off the inning. He had 2 strikeouts in the inning between all of the scoring, but LSU allowed 5 runs in the 7th inning of the first game on Saturday. And where it starts is Fontenot, hitting those first 2 guys with the pitch. And then Benj has to come in where it's two runners on base, nobody out, and he gives up a hit, throws a wild pitch, and then they just hit a home run. So it was really kind of not fun for LSU fans, especially, and for the team as well. But Connor Benj, again, it's kind of hard to pin it all on him, and I'm not saying it's all Fontenot's fault or anything like that. It's just, it's the first inning where LSU really struggled to get out of this season. They've been pretty dominant all, for the first 2 weeks, except for the 7th inning where you hit the first 2 guys by pitch, and then you give a 1 hit, and then you give up a home run. It's 5-0. Omaha. Freshman Cooper Williams pitched the final 2 innings, the 8th and the 9th for LSU, and he gave up no hits and no runs, and he recorded 1 strikeout. So that was the pitching side of this first game Saturday, but the concerning thing comes from the LSU bats, who really struggled in the first game Saturday. And it starts in the first 2 innings where LSU left the bases loaded in both the first inning and the second inning, and they didn't score a run. They didn't score a run in the first 2 innings after leaving the bases loaded. Stephen Milam popped out to end the first, and Jared Jones flew out to end the second. After that, they couldn't really get anything going after that. It was the perfect setup to where you have the bases loaded with Stephen Milam at the plate in the first inning after you dominated against Purdue Fort Wayne, you dominated against Southern, and you think, you struggled a little bit Friday, but you're like, okay, bases loaded, pop up. Bases loaded again, second inning for Jerry Jones, pop up. And then after that, pretty much innings 3 through 8, you couldn't get anything going. LSU was hitless through 7 innings, and they were scoreless through 8 innings in that game. They really, really struggled. They hit a ton of fly balls. They hit 17 fly balls in that game. And again, it's harder to score and to drive the ball when it's colder outside and when it's windier outside, right? So again, popped up 17 times. You could say it's colder weather. You could say maybe, pressing a little bit or anything like that. They didn't really strike out a ton. They hit a lot of fly balls, and they grounded out a lot. They tried to fight back, though, in the 9th. So in the 9th inning, it's 5-0. Again, LSU is hitless through 7. They're scoreless through 8. LSU comes in the 9th inning, they score 4 runs. And we're going to kind of go through the 9th inning just to, real quick, to let you know what happened. So Tanner Reeves singled to right. He was followed by a Jake Brown double. And then after the Jake Brown double to put both him and Reeves on second and third, Ryan Costello walked to load the bases with nobody out. And then with the bases loaded, Daniel Dickinson hit a 2 RBI double. Again, what a stud. We're seeing it through 2 weekends. Daniel Dickinson, he gets the scoring started, hit a 2 RBI double. Derek Curiel, after Dickinson walked, to load the bases again with no outs. And then Jared Jones hits an RBI single, and the bases are still loaded. So you think at this point, LSU's making a run. It's 5-3, nobody out, bases loaded. Omaha can't slow them down. Josh Pearson, after Jones, flew out to center field, but the runner at third was still able to tag up to drive in LSU's 4th run of the inning. Curiel actually advanced to third on a wild pitch. Really aggressive base running by Curiel. They had to review the play at third, but they reviewed it and they called him safe. So he advances to third on a wild pitch. Runners on the corners, 1 out, and then Larson strikes out. And then Milam flies out to center to end the game. And Omaha wins 5-4. LSU drops, takes their first L of the season. It was really good to see LSU try to claw their way back in the 9th, right? But it was really good to see the mental toughness and the mental fortitude of the team, as they didn't just throw in the towel, say, look, we got another game tonight. They tried to come back, and they scored 4 runs in the 9th. And it was really impressive to see. Unfortunately, with their play in the first 8 innings, it just wasn't enough. LSU in this game was 3 for 13 with runners on base. and 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. And again, the offense was hitless through 7 and scoreless through 8. So it was just not the game for the Bats. It was a game where they really struggled, couldn't get anything going. Pop out, fly out, left and right, 17 of those, and they just could not get it going. And unfortunately for LSU fans and for the team in general, they dropped their first game of the season. And then LSU comes back at 5 o'clock the same day and has to play game 2 of the doubleheader and last game of the series. Chase Shores starts the third game of the series, the last game of the series, the last game of the doubleheader, and Shores again was very impressive. He pitched 5 innings of scoreless baseball, gave up 3 hits, 2 walks, and struck out 6. So Shores was really impressive. Again, we talked about it last week. You have that guy right there, Chase Shores, running in at Sunday, starting Sunday, because your first 2 guys are good enough to start ahead of him. That shows me, and that tells me through these first 2 weeks at least, which, yes, is lesser competition, but it tells me that, hey, LSU could have one of the best starting rotations in the country. They could have one of the best pitching staffs in the country. They've really only had one really bad inning in, 7, 8 games. And that was 7th in the first game of Saturday's doubleheader. But Shores was really impressive. And then a guy we talked about earlier, Zach Cowan, came in the 6th. He pitched 2 scoreless, no-hit innings with 3 strikeouts again. So he had 3 strikeouts in the game against Southern and another 3 in the game against Omaha, which was really impressive to see. Again, Cowan's a guy who's experienced. He pitched 110 innings last year as Wolfert's ace. So he's a guy who can really contribute to this team, come out of the pen, get you outs where you need it. So he's been really impressive so far. Nichols transfer Jacob Myers comes in the 8th and allows 1 run in the 8th after walking 2, and then he struck out 2 as well. And then DJ Primo and Jay Newt both combined to close out the 9th, with Jay Newt recording a strikeout. LSU's bullpen after Shores threw 4 innings of 1-run baseball with 6 strikeouts and 2 walks. That is efficient. That is domination out of the bullpen. And it's really something that's important to see and special to see, because last season, as we said last week, Sunday pitching-wise was, you just didn't know. It was Ackenhausen. It was, it was Guidry sometimes. It was, you just never knew who was going to start, because after Luke Coleman engaged jump, it was like, okay, we got to win the first 2 games on Friday and Saturday, because we probably don't have the pitching most times to win the game on Sunday. That's not a problem for LSU anymore this season with Anderson, Ianson, and then you have Shores to start Sunday. So that's really important to see. So 12 strikeouts in this game for LSU pitching. After the 7th inning and the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, really had a really solid game to close out the series against Omaha, and that was really good to see. And what was also great to see was the bounce back from the LSU Bats in the second game, where they scored 12 runs to close out the series in the last game of the series this weekend. So LSU scored 12 runs. They scored in 5 of the 8 innings they came up to bat. LSU scored 1 in the 2nd, 1 in the 3rd, 3 in the 4th, 3 in the 6th, and 4 in the 7th. They were 6 for 16 with runners in scoring position. Whereas in the first game, it was you load the bases in the first 2 innings and don't get any runs across. In this game, it was nice to see the team bounce back and put 12 runs on the board and lead the Tigers to a 12-1 victory that clinched the series against Omaha, right? That was really, really impressive and important to see the Bats bounce back from that game on the same day nonetheless. Some stat lines for some of the hitters in this third game. Jerry Jones, as always, we talked about him, being one of the leaders of this team at the plate. He had 3 hits, including a double and 5 RBIs in this game. Derek Curiel continues to shine with 2 hits. Josh Pearson had a double and 2 RBIs. Steven Milam had 3 hits, including a double. So really a lot of guys contributing in this game after that disappointment in the first game. Also, Luis Hernandez hits his 3rd double of the series in this game, and defensively, he threw out his 2nd runner of the series. So, it was great to see. It was just awesome to see. After that first game of that doubleheader, this team could have, really been down on themselves, really been down on what happened, but they took what happened in the 9th inning, and they said, we're going to do this the whole game, next game. It was really good to see because LSU in the first 5 games of the season hadn't really been tested except for maybe the final few innings holding on Friday against Omaha, right? But really good to see the team bounce back, and it shows that this team has mental toughness. And I'm not really, struggling with, I'm not going to overreact to one game. This team has all the talent in the world. Their pitching staff is, through 2 weeks, one of the best all-around staffs I've seen at LSU in a while, in my opinion. You've had guys like, you had Paul Skeens and that before. Nobody on this team is up to his level, up to the level of, an Aaron Nola or a Paul Skeens or anything like that. I'm saying collectively, this team has one of the deepest staffs that LSU has had in a long time, in my opinion. You've seen that through the first 2 weeks, and it is against lesser competition, I'll admit that. But last season, just remembering some scores from last year LSU gave up 7 runs against VMI in the first game of the season. And in the first series of the season, they only had 2 walks and 45 strikeouts this season. And then, they struggle in 1 game against Omaha, really 1 inning against Omaha. But besides that, they've really been excellent. And so, and as far as the hitting is concerned, it's concerning, but I completely trust Jay Johnson to figure it out, and these guys to figure it out. And Jay said that he learned a lot about this team Saturday. I still feel really good about the team as a whole. I still, even with the loss, I really don't think it's something to panic over. Nobody should panic at this point after 1 loss to Omaha. LSU has been great fielding. They've been dominant fielding. So, look, after this week, just some thoughts I have. LSU has some work to do, of course. But no one should panic. Looking around the country, Texas A&M is the number 1 team in the country. They lost a game yesterday, Sunday, to close out their series against Cal Poly. Arkansas lost a game Friday against Kansas State. Again, it looks like LSU could have one of the best weekend starting rotations in the country. Bullpen also continues to look really good as well. There's only been 1 bad inning so far for the bullpen in the 7th of the first game on Saturday. But besides that, they've been great. And they've really shined, and they've really impressed me. And I'm really high on this pitching staff, higher than I've been in a while for a pitching staff as a whole. I have trust and confidence in this pitching staff and in Nate Yeske's 2nd season as the pitching coach at LSU, because he's one of the best pitching coaches in the country. And with his 2nd season with these pitchers, I have a lot of faith in what this pitching staff is going to be able to contribute throughout the season. I think it can be one of the best in the country by season's end. I really do. And throughout the season as well. For the Bats, Gotta find a groove, definitely, especially with runners in scoring position. But again, I think they will. They did a good job trying to fight back in the ninth. They also had a really good bounce back game in the game to close out the series on Saturday night. Like what I saw out of Luis Hernandez, Derek Curiel, Daniel Dickinson, and Jared Jones, especially Luis Hernandez, because again, we talked about right field with all the depth there, outfield in general with all the depth there, but we really kind of talked about the catching situation and how we didn't really see anybody shine with as far as hitting in the first weekend against Purdue Fort Wayne. But 3 doubles through the 3 games this weekend for Luis Hernandez was really good to see, those 3 doubles. Other guys are playing well too. It'll be interesting to see, as far as tonight, kind of want to, as we close out, run through the schedule for this weekend. So tonight, Monday, when we're recording this right now, Monday, tonight, LSU has a game in the box at 6 p.m. against Nicholls before traveling they will be in Texas all week, starting Wednesday when they play a neutral site game in Arlington, Texas at Globe Life Field where the Rangers play, the Rangers home ballpark. They have a game against Dallas Baptist, who is number 18 in the country. So that'll be really good to see them against a top 20 team early in the season. That'll be really something to see and something to look out for. And then as far as the weekend goes, they play in kind of a round-robin tournament, the Frisco College Baseball Classic in Frisco, Texas. They have a game Friday in Frisco against Kansas State at 2 o'clock, a game Saturday at 4 o'clock against Nebraska, and a game against Sam Houston State Sunday to close out the Frisco Baseball Classic at 4 o'clock. And by the way, that Dallas Baptist game is at 7 on Wednesday night, coming up in a couple days. So, lastly, to close out, it'll be interesting to see Gavin Guidry possibly on one of the next 2 games, either tonight against Nicholls or Wednesday against Dallas Baptist. Been really interesting that we haven't seen Guidry so far. Guidry has been a special guy. Always, he's been a reliever most of his time at LSU, but he's a guy who you could possibly see try to get a couple midweek starts, kind of see stretching him out. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, nothing's right now with the way the starting rotation between Anderson, Ianson, and Shores, with the way they're playing, nothing's going to change, right? But I'm excited personally to see Gavin Guidry out there because he's always been one of my favorites with that wicked breaking ball, just a wipeout breaking ball. So I'm really excited to hopefully see Gavin Guidry tonight against Nicholls or Wednesday against Dallas Baptist. And then we might also see freshman William Schmidt out of Catholic High School, who pitched in the Sunday game last week against Purdue Fort Wayne and pitched 2.2 innings, scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts. So be interesting to see coming up what Schmidt and Guidry might do either tonight or Wednesday against Dallas Baptist. But look, to close out, I'm still really high on this team. Really think that this team is going to, be really good this season. Still, even with that loss, they're still top 3 in the D1 baseball poll that came out today. It's Texas A&M, LSU, Arkansas 1, 2, and 3 in the D1 baseball poll that was released today on Monday. That D1 baseball releases every Monday. So, again, impressive to see the team bounce back. The bounce back game Sunday kind of was really, really important to see how the team responded, and they responded well. So, be interested to see the team play away from home in Texas this week, and we're excited to see it. And we're excited for what comes next. SEC play comes up in about 2.5 weeks. Excited to see that. Missouri on March 14th at the box. So we just keep on rolling here at the Culotta Show and here at the Rally Time Podcast with me. I'm with Christian. Just really excited to bring this coverage to you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we hope y'all are enjoying this season like we are. And that y'all have a great one.